Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Burger, our podcast produced by the New Mexico Beef Council. I'm Caroline Romo, the Executive Director of the New Mexico Beef Council, and this is an extra special episode. I am in Maui with my family on a personal vacation, but we went ahead and packed the podcast equipment because we believe there's a unique story to be told about ranching in Hawaii, and of course we have met Angel sitting to my left at a event where all the beef councils were together and learning at National Cattlemen's Beef Association. So all that to say, we're working while we're on vacation because it's so exciting. So anyways, this episode with me is Kristin from Ulupalakua Ranch.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. And Angel from the Hawaii Beef Industry Council and Hawaii Cattlemen's Organization. Angel, maybe I actually will have you introduce yourself first because you kind of helped set this up and we met you first, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Aloha, everyone. My name is Angel Melone. Everyone calls me Angel. I work with the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, the Hawaii Beef Industry Council, and the Hawaii Range and Stewardship Foundation. As Caroline mentioned, we had the opportunity to meet earlier this year in person at a training, and we just hit it off immediately, talking about invasive species and the similarities and differences that New Mexico ranchers face, similar to Hawaii, and thought that, wow, what a great opportunity. She mentioned she was coming to visit Maui later in the year, and everything just worked out. So I'm really honored to have worked with Kristin and Ulupalakua Ranch in various capacities in the past. And I felt that who better to speak to the possibilities, the opportunities, as well as the challenges that Hawaii faces with ranching, no better than Kristin Mack-Almasin. So thank you, Ulupalakua Ranch, for allowing us to be here and for being great stewards of the land.
Absolutely. Thank you. Great introduction. Well, then we'll pass to you and you can give us an introduction of yourself and then we can go into the ranch.
Thank you. Aloha. I'm Kristin Mack-Almasin. I'm the Livestock Manager here at Ulupalakua Ranch in Maui. My background is I'm actually from Northeast Ohio. I went to Ohio State University, go Bucks, for undergrad and graduate school. After grad school, I moved out here for a job, actually working with a pineapple company, doing some beef cattle work. Most of my undergrad and graduate was actually in grazing dairy, so my background is more in dairy than beef, but I ended up out here working more in the beef industry because we have more beef out here. And ended up about 2016, started a job here at Ulupalakua Ranch and moved up to Livestock Manager in 2018. And here I am today.
Yeah, what an interesting evolution of your career. And yeah, you might have to explain the cattle at the pineapple farm. That's pretty interesting.
So there is some work kind of looking at utilizing beef cattle on fallow pineapple fields and then feeding crushed pineapple waste to beef cattle. So I came in doing some work in that and then
interesting.
Migrated through some different projects here and ended up here at Ulupalakua.
Perfect. We do talk about it a lot in the office and then on the podcast about cattle being great upcyclers, right?
Right.
So will you tell me about the ranch and even so I kind of either maybe like a yearly schedule so people understand, because the idea is we're trying to tell the story of ranching for someone maybe who doesn't know. So what's kind of the yearly schedule or maybe even like the life cycle of an animal on the ranch here?
So we have about 18,000 contiguous acres here at Ulupalakua that we graze. So we have two main cow herds, about 800 breeding cows at this particular time. One of the cow herds will start calving in about January, and they wean out in the fall of the year. Brand them in the spring, about April. And then we have another cow herd that will start calving here pretty quick in July. And then we'll brand them in the fall and then wean them out in the spring. So that's our two main herds. We do a 63-day calving window for each of the herds.
Yeah, Perfect. And is there a different elevation or a different place that these herds are? Is that why the calving is different?
It was at one point in time, which is kind of why it was worked out that way with, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about later with the access deer populations and the overgrazing. From that, we've had to kind of cycle to a program that we move the cattle where we've got forage.
Yeah.
So that's changed over time. So basically now the 2 cow herd system allows us to, move animals from one herd to another or hold heifers longer so that they're a little more mature when we breed them. So they kind of handle the environment better. So there's some definite benefits to having that 2 cow system.
Yeah.
Different times of the year, 2 cow herd system.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And do you, so maybe can you talk about the, which I guess we're going to talk landscapes is one of my questions, but the different landscapes on the ranch, and then how do those fit into your ranching practices?
Right. So we graze anywhere from ocean, down by the ocean, all the way up to over 5,000 feet elevation. And then everything from very rocky to kind of, I guess, less rocky. Not completely not rocky here, but less rocky, more open, shorter grass pastures. And since we are contiguous, it's a little bit easier for us to take the cow herds where they need to go based on their production, the stage of production cycle that they're in. So cows that are calving or have small calves on them versus cows that might be dry, we could take them in some rougher stuff and do some cleanup and some, fire breaking work or that sort of thing. So so it's just kind of depend on current conditions and what's going on in the weather and with the invasive species that we have where we go with them.
Yeah. Well, do you, so what role does land and resource management play in your ranching?
It's everything here. So in Hawaii, we don't really have access to any type of purchased feed. So if we don't have winter and we have winter, but we don't have snow. So, the grass doesn't really shut down for cold reasons as much, except for some of the very mauka or the grass is really high up in the mountain, or say mauka grasses will shut down when it gets colder. But we do have a definite dry season here. And so we need to plan for that. Drought planning is crucial. We have to always be thinking a couple months ahead as far as our stocking rates, what kind of cattle we have on hand, where we're going to go next with grass and just try to plan for that because we don't have a way to purchase feed and feed here out of a bad situation. And we don't really have sale barns either. So I can't really move cattle quickly if I need to. So it's a lot of research management. It really is everything here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really interesting thing. In some parts of New Mexico, feed is more abundant. And I think the last podcast I recorded, he had some farms that if anything got tough, he had spots, and so he created a grow yards because he had so much feed.
Yeah,
it's an interesting problem or solution. So, and then you talk about drought. So in New Mexico, our annual rainfall is, I think it's anywhere from like 8 inches to maybe 20 inches a year, but usually 8 to 15, I think, is most ranchers. Mm-hmm. What are we looking at annual rainfall here?
Right here at headquarters, 20 to 30 inches. We've got some stuff up around 40 and then down to probably closer to 8. So it varies a lot. Here in Hawaii, we've got a lot of microclimates in a very short span of area. I'm sure you've seen driving around Maui that it changes very quickly here. And so even on the ranch, we've got everything from super dry, leeward type landscapes that are just rocks and brush and, not much grass or very much seasonal grass to a little bit more rainy areas, lush areas. So,
I mean, that's a huge difference. 8 to 30 or 8 to 40. That's completely different landscapes.
Yeah. And the weather patterns lately have been trending drier and drier. We've seen that as an issue here. We've tracked rainfall we've got data over about 100 years, and we've seen the rainfall patterns change to more rainfall falling all at one time. We'll get 10 inches sometimes, 24 hours, and then not rain for months. So that's been a tough change for us, is to deal with getting all that rain at once and losing a lot of it and then not having any for a long time.
Yeah. I would say we have that problem too. We had we were at a ranch and overnight they had 2.5 inches of rain. Well, you're not getting a lot of that rain. You're not collecting it. The ground can't even absorb it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a big problem. What is one of the biggest challenges you face as a rancher?
I mean, in recent years, definitely the axis deer overpopulation. It's been huge. So just in my time here, my 8 to 9 years here, we've cut the cow herd in half. We're running less than half of cows we were running just, 6-7 years ago. And why, some of that's due to drought conditions. Most of that is due to the overpopulation of deer. So, one count on this ranch alone, we had about 9,000 head of deer on 18,000 acres. So 2 deer per acre, or 1 deer every 2 acres. So that's huge. If you think of an equivalency of maybe about 7 deer per head of cow, that's over 1,000 head of cattle that we can't run anymore because of the deer overpopulation. So that's become everything in our lives as ranchers in the past few years is getting that under control so we can start managing our resources again, because you just can't do it. You can't manage stockpiles of grasses. You can't plan for drought. You can't, manage your herd numbers if you think there's going to be grass there and you come back and there's not grass there because the deer have taken it all off. And so it's been tough. It's been a tough bunch of years. So we're seeing some things get better. We've seen a lot of attention to it. There's some funds going to deer control and a lot of different efforts out there. And so things are looking up. We're starting to see a light.
Yeah.
But it's been a long struggle.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And so kind of to explain that, some of the conversations I had with Angel, and then I think we even maybe had it before we started recording, is that so the axis deer were introduced to Hawaii in the 50s or something, right? And there's no natural predator for the animal. So they're just left to grow and overpopulate and just continue to, cause harm, right?
Yeah, I mean, their growth has really been exponential since they were introduced here, and there was only a few head when they introduced them, and just without really any natural predators besides hunters and some of these big, large land tracts that they can just move from ranch to ranch, kind of interrupted, has just allowed them to move away from pressure when there was hunting pressure, and just keep overpopulating and moving now into the watersheds, into the forests, and areas that are even harder for us to get them. So yeah, it's been a huge problem.
Absolutely. Well, and then we talk about stocking rate too. So I think you mentioned that in the beginning too, when you're trying to maintain grass at a healthy level, you have a stocking rate, right? So an animal unit per acre that you're sticking with, and when you don't have control over the wild animals, you have to change that, and that's just really complicated.
Yeah,
hard to predict, hard to manage, right?
Yeah, really impossible to manage. I mean, if we can't manage the axis deer's movement, which you can't without a higher fence, and high fence is very, very expensive, as we've all found, as we've had to fence these large tracts of land. Millions of dollars have been spent by each ranch to do this, to get this problem under control. So.
Yeah, that is a very large challenge. Talking kind of back to the cattle, can you give an example of how you care for your cattle to ensure their health and well-being? Or another example, because obviously grass management was the first one.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge here, because like I said, we don't have feed. So there's no real way for us to feed ourselves out of a bad situation. So managing those populations and trying to think ahead. One huge thing here is matching the genetics to the environment for us. We generally are all pretty low input producers. You kind of have to be here. Inputs are super expensive, and most of them are imported, over the ocean. And so there's a lot of time and focus for us spent on developing or bringing in genetics for that animal that needs to be that mid-sized animal that can do well on grass, and grass that's not always the best grass. Yeah. Forages that aren't always prime forages, and still bring back and bring in a calf and raise a nice calf. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about, both in cattle and sheep also, because we have sheep as well, is just developing that animal that fits this environment.
Yeah, I think when we have talked about genetics in the past, sometimes our listeners are a little confused and get a little scared of that word, which I'm not sure why, because it's such an easy and wonderful thing that we're doing when we're breeding an animal. So we're choosing breeds and choosing characteristics in an animal to breed the next generation, right? And it's just I've used this maybe analogy a couple times on the podcast now, but I'm going to keep using it. It's as the same as when we bred poodle dogs to a Australian Shepherd or any sort of other dog to try and take that characteristic of not shedding and being hypoallergenic, and we've bred different breeds of dogs to make these new dogs that can be in the home, right? So I just been using that because I think that's important to understand when we talk genetics. It's just about breeding cattle. You have a calmer animal. Maybe that one's easier to process, so then you keep breeding that one. But you have a wilder animal. We're not going to breed that one, or whatever it is. It's just I don't want it to be a scary thing.
Right. Just working with the natural variability and breeding for those traits that we need in this environment, really, for those cattle to do well and to be healthy and to survive naturally.
Yeah, and that's a great word. It's a natural process. Mm-hmm. Natural is a great way to describe that. What's one thing, or maybe another thing, most people don't know about raising beef in Hawaii?
Let's see. We don't have much irrigated country. Like I said, we can't really buy feed. There's not much opportunities to buy feed or bring in feed. It's very expensive. And also not many of us have much irrigated country. And so we also can't, water our way out of a bad situation either. So that's probably one kind of interesting, different aspect of this industry here. I think a lot of people don't even know how many head of beef cattle there are in Hawaii. When they think about Hawaii, they think about vacations, and that there actually is quite a few head. Actually about 140,000 head of cattle total in Hawaii, 83,000 head of beef cows, according to USDA numbers. And the ranchers actually generate $82 million of gross income in Hawaii. So I thought those are some interesting kind of big numbers that people who come to Hawaii maybe for vacation and traveling don't realize how big of an industry it actually is.
Oh, it's really important. That's the whole goal kind of the podcast too in New Mexico, is we want people to know that New Mexico beef is important for New Mexico and beef is important for Hawaii. Most of the states in our nation, it's a really important part of the economy and an important part of land and resource management, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really neat. One thing too, if something that maybe I don't know about beef in Hawaii, or I didn't know before maybe talking to Angel and others, is there's not a lot of processing in Hawaii either, right? So cattle have to go. Some cattle have to go by boat to get processed.
Cattle do go by boat. So there's a mixture of markets here. There is a grass finished or locally finished industry. So some of our calves stay locally, go to either pastures for finishing, or go to a feedlot type or feeding type situation. And then we do ship out some cattle, kind of basically what the local market can't take. We do also have a ranch in Prineville, Oregon. The same owners have a ranch in Prineville, Oregon. So we send calves to our ranch there for backgrounding and growing out. And so we do a little of both. Sometimes, a lot of times, the local market cannot or does not pay as well. We tend to take a loss keeping them here locally, just because of local conditions and cost of processing and that sort of thing. And so it actually pays better for ranchers to ship them out to the mainland. So it just depends on market conditions and that sort of thing. But yeah,
it's just complicated. New Mexico doesn't have a lot of commercial processing in our state, so a lot of our cattle leave the state to get processed, and then we say comes back in a box or at the grocery store. And we tell people in New Mexico the best way to support a rancher is just to buy beef at a grocery store, a restaurant. And then if you can buy it locally, we have local directories and all of that. But supporting a rancher means buying beef. It means ordering beef. It means ordering more cheeseburgers. It means just buying beef at the grocery store too. So, What is the most rewarding part of raising cattle?
I think for me, just watching their improvements over time, the genetic improvement really interests me. So that selecting for traits, that variability within animals, within our herds of animals, and selecting for that, bringing in, versus artificial insemination, bringing in some genetics that we think might work and testing that out. I really love that. I'm very interested in that. And so just finding those types of cattle that do well here naturally and then watching them do really well here is really exciting for me, and I enjoy that. So seeing that improvement over time is something I really, really enjoy.
Oh, man, absolutely. I think that's really special when you can literally see it in front of you, right? You see the cattle as being successful because of something you chose in the breeding. What do you think is your favorite part of the beef industry?
I think, again, that focus on improvement, it always just amazes me how, like, we go to, some of these NCBA conferences or conventions and that sort of thing, and just the focus on always getting better, whether it be in our genetics, whether it be in our animal efficiency, our sustainability, nutrition of beef, and doing a better job of supplying that, or, just letting people know how nutritious beef is. There's always just this real excitement in this industry. Always just that interest to get better, even stockmanship, like handling better, being more efficient, and more interest in animal welfare. And it's just always getting better. So I think it's really always exciting to see how many young people are coming into this industry because there's so much improvement. Like, we're just getting better. Even using technology now, using drones, using artificial, intelligence to improve what we do, using the virtual fence. Like, it's super exciting no matter what your interest area is to be in this industry at this stage. And so it's cool to go to these conferences and see how many young people are coming into it, and that it, should continue to get better.
Oh, absolutely. I think the future is bright. And I think being involved in an industry that is interested in learning and adapting and improving is an honor, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so neat. You want to see that, because if we're going to keep providing, safe, wholesome, and quality food for the world, we've got to keep continuing to be more efficient and all the things.
So I think that's all our ultimate goal, is that we want to be food producers, and we want to produce the best food that we can. We really do enjoy that. That's why we're in this. That's my passion in life, is to be a food producer. And so, it's exciting to be in that and to be able to do that and to do it better all the time, using science and, using these developments in stockmanship and using for us stock dogs and doing a better job at what we do.
Absolutely. Oh man, we love to see stock dogs work. They're an efficient way to move animals. So you might have already kind of answered this, but working with cattle, there's challenges. There's you can't control the weather, you can't control the wild animals. But why do you keep doing what you do? What makes you keep going?
I think I just love producing food. I think it's a very noble way to make a living. Food production, whether it be farming and ranching or, dairy or whatever, is you are trying to feed the world. That is really what we're doing. And so for me, at the end of the day, that's what drives me is to know I'm contributing to doing this in the best way possible. And so that would always keep me going.
Absolutely. Working, and I'm sure Angel can attest to this too, working for those of you that are growing food and raising food is an honor, right? It's a noble job to even be connected, to put it lightly. Yes, absolutely. What do you want consumers to know about ranching, or specifically ranching in Hawaii, if they take away one thing?
I think it might be the amount of thought and time and passion and knowledge and science that really goes into what we do. It's not just throwing the cattle out there and bringing them back and then harvesting them. And there's so much that goes into every aspect of this production system. So much data, so much knowledge, so much science, so much thought, so much art, that goes into the handling of them. That it's super interesting. I think people don't always realize there's just a lot that goes into it. So, just that understanding of the different aspects. And if you ever get the chance to talk to a rancher and kind of pick their brain on what they understand. And, I always think that managing animals and managing pastures together is an art. You can talk about the science and the measurements to it and that sort of thing. But I mean, there's a certain art form in what we do, and going out there and be able to look at an environment and understand what's going on, below the surface of the grass, below the soil and above, and understand how to best manage that. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there is so much to it. And I think that's kind of the whole goal. The whole goal or the whole idea of the podcast is we want people to know there's so much, and there's so much extra effort and good intentions and well thought out process that goes into us being able to buy safe, wholesome, beef at the grocery store. So absolutely. Well, thank you for helping us tell that story. Can you talk about the family side of the business? Do you have family that's involved? Is the ranch family owned? How does that kind of
our ranch is family owned. Was purchased in 1963 by the Erdman family. And they're still here on the ranch. So Mr. Erdman is still here living in Maui, and his son is, directly involved in the operation, and now the daughters are coming back to it. So it's interesting to see that multi-generational ranch and ranch family, and we're really blessed to be able to work for a very kind and giving and very present family here, on the ranch. Always get that chance with ranching today, and it's nice to see that it's still, a family, and you can work directly with them and, have that contact. So
absolutely. I think that multi-generation ranching is always special. And then, something that started in the 60s, that's a long-term business. There's not a lot of businesses that last generations.
Right. And then to see it change, with the new generations coming on, like what this will become, how does it morph with times, to stay, and stay a relevant business, and, what is that next step? And so it's interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I did want you to be able to give a shout out too. So if someone is visiting Maui, there's also a store here, right? So they can come get kind of a peek at the beef, and the as you're driving past, you're seeing pastures and ranching country. You might not see cattle because they are spread out, but yeah, can you give like a teaser if they're in town?
Yeah, come to Ulupalakua Ranch store. It's right here, close to our headquarters. Great food. We do our local beef in the burgers. Our lamb is in the burgers. Also, do venison burgers, which is the wild caught invasive venison here from the ranch, and elk as well. We do raise elk. We only elk in Hawaii. So, and then we also do specials. We have a little store with our logo items. We eat lunch there. It's good.
That's perfect. Yeah. We had stopped here the last time we were lucky enough to vacation, and my kid has a cute T-shirt from the ranch store, and it's a fun story, and always trying to find connection to agriculture on our vacations if we can, because learning more about where you visit is always a special part. So is there anything else you'd like to add about Hawaii or the beef industry, or even just your ranch?
I think one interesting thing about the beef industry here and all over the country is the land stewardship portion of what we do. We didn't talk a whole lot about that, but we are, a lot of the focus on why we do what we do is based on the health of the land and doing a better job of always taking care of the land, what the land tells us, and improving hopefully the health of it over time. And so we've got, lots of different projects going on to always improve land health, do more regenerative agriculture type practices, all those kind of things. And so, it's an interesting part of ranching that not everyone knows about, but a big focus for us is the land stewardship. And then also fuel control. I mean, here in Hawaii, we've got a fire problem. So, one big thing we use livestock for is controlling the brush and the fuel loads to be able to catch these fires when they do happen faster and prevent those really bad situations.
Yeah. Cattle are a great way to help with the fuel, right? Grazing cattle prevents a lot of fire in places, and then sometimes we see when cattle are no longer allowed to graze, the problems that it could cause because they're great for the land and great for preventing that thick fuel. And when we say fuel too, for a listener, that's just that grass that maybe becomes fuel for a fire, right? The grass that gets dried out or gets thicker because no one's there eating it.
Right. Yep. That becomes the fuel for the fire, and it becomes super hard to catch it and get it under control in these unmanaged landscapes that are not grazed.
Yeah, we love cattle, and I'm of course biased because I work for the cattle industry, but I believe the impact they can have on the environment is very positive in so many ways.
Yeah,
so many ways. Okay, so we've got the fun answer, kind of the last answer, unless you have anything else that you wanted to hit.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Fun one.
So the fun question, and I even say it's probably the most important and definitely one of the most interesting, is what is your favorite way to eat beef?
You know what? It's actually oxtail soup. So I like tail more than anything.
Oh man,
For part.
I love that. Yeah,
I like the very marrowy bone soups more than anything. So like a shin bone soup or an oxtail is my favorite. Of course, a good steak is awesome too, but if you have to eat the bone soups, so.
Oh, I love that, and I think we actually have a recipe that we can share with it too. So we'll share that, and then is there a uniquely Hawaiian way to eat beef? So in New Mexico, we like to tell people that if you order steak and enchiladas, and then you can get beef and enchiladas, and then it's the real secretive way is to order them Christmas, which means green and red chili.
Ooh.
When you come to New Mexico, so you can get steak and enchiladas, and then another uniquely New Mexican thing is a green chili cheeseburger. And so we're all very passionate about our chili with our beef. So is there a uniquely Hawaiian way to eat beef?
I mean, the oxtail is pretty Hawaiian, or not Hawaiian, but local, I should say.
Yeah.
And then the lau, I would say, would be one. So that would be a steamed beef, and sometimes there's pork in there too, or, fish as well, wrapped in a taro leaf, and then, steamed, so the taro leaf melts. And so, yeah, if you're here, try it.
I remember. We even had a great short rib with rice at a restaurant, but it was a Filipino restaurant. The other day. There's good ways to eat beef in Maui. We've been trying them.
Yes. There sure is.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing I was going to say just before we wrap up is you mentioned if people have questions or they're interested, if they want to learn, if you are listening and you want to know more about the industry, please, follow along to our podcast, but also you can go to beefitswhatsfordinner.com. You can go to nmbeef.com, and you can go to, is there a Hawaii?
Yeah, hawaiibeef.org.
Yeah, and so there's websites and organizations that you can go to for more information on ranching. We'd love to answer questions, and right now we don't have a ton of questions, so I would say you can even reach out to us. You can reply to the podcast, and we'll try and get answers, because I think if there are questions, we're open to giving answers.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk about this all day.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you, Angel, for helping introduce and get us here. And we're so grateful for your time. And thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Behind the Burger is a podcast produced by the New Mexico Beef Council with the goal of telling the stories of the cattlemen and cattlewomen of the New Mexico beef industry. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. If you would like more information, please visit nmbeef.com. Whether it be a burger, a steak, or another beef dish, we hope you are enjoying beef at your next meal.